vision through the Council Plan 2017 to 2021 to make East Gippsland the most livable region in Australia. A place of natural beauty, enviable lifestyles and opportunities.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to East Gippsland Shire's first meeting for 2018. Tonight marks a new era for our council meetings. This meeting is being live streamed as part of this council's commitment to make meetings more accessible to the residents of East Gippsland and beyond. I extend a warm welcome not only to those present in the gallery, but the many people who have joined us for our live stream tonight, watching from elsewhere: Bendock, Bonang, Mallacoota, Orbost, Omeo, Painesville and many, many more places. These recordings are also archived and are available for viewing by the public following tonight's meeting, or used for publicity or information purposes. For those joining us in the gallery, please ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to also acknowledge former Councillor Michael Freshwater in the gallery tonight, and former Mayor. On behalf of Council, I'd like to acknowledge the Gunai-Kurnai people, the traditional owners of the land, which we are gathered, and pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. Item 1.2, is there any apologies, Mr CEO?
No apologies, Mr Mayor.
Item 1.3, declaration of conflicts of interest.
Nil received.
Item 1.4 is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday the 12th of December 2017 be confirmed.
Happy to move that, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor Pells.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to those minutes, actually.
Yes, Councillor Reeves. And
yeah, sorry, Councillor Peltz. Just scanning through them, and councillors and those gathered, there's a little bit of self-interest because I wanted to read my witty and ironic report that wasn't included in those minutes. So I'm just wondering if I have forgotten to circulate those to the officers, and if so, I will do so and make good that there's a true and accurate record of that meeting, including my report that night.
thanks, Councillor Reeves. So there's the amendment that Councillor Reeves' council report will be included in those minutes.
Happily to second the amendment to the minutes.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Against? It's carried.
Mr Mayor, we need now to move the minutes. Sorry? We have to revert back to the original motion now.
No.
But haven't we just passed an amendment to...
It was an amendment to that, my understanding was an amendment to that motion that was there to include.
Just to clarify, Councillor Peltz withdrew her motion, and so although we used the terminology amendment, I think what Councillor Reeves was saying, I'd like to move a different recommendation, a different motion. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Ms Bennett. That's, I couldn't have said it better myself.
So item 1.5 is the next meeting. It's the ordinary council meeting, Tuesday 6th of March 2018. Item 1.6 is request for leave of absence. Nil. 1.7, public question time.
We've received no public questions, Mr Mayor.
Item 1.8 is the record of assemblies of councillors, and we have an assembly of councillors noted there, December 2017 and January 2018. So
I'm happy to move that, Mr Mayor.
moved Councillor Pels, seconded Councillor Toohey. Is there any questions? I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 1.9, petitions.
There's been nil received, Mr Mayor.
Item notice of motion or rescission of motion.
There's nil notices of motion or rescissions.
Item 3 is deferred business.
Mr Mayor, item 3.1 is the East Gippsland Planning Scheme Amendment C126, implementation of the Paynesville Maritime Precinct Master Plan. This item has been deferred and it'll come to a future council meeting.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Item 4 is councillor reports. Councillor Toohey.
Well, my report for this month is actually quite brief, and what I would like to speak of is my attendance at the Australia Day ceremony in Paynesville, which I very much enjoyed. I would say there was probably 150 or more people down there. Great weather, as I think it was great weather everywhere. Really good to see all of those people out there celebrating and just enjoying the day. Again, the Lions Club were there serving breakfast, and it was just a fantastic day overall. Great spirit, great music, just a great time had by all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Toohey. Councillor O'Connell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. During the last couple of months since we last met, I've attended a few things, including the Swifts Creek P12 School Celebration Night, which was to recognise the achievements of students throughout the 2017 year. I attended the Mountain Cattlemen's Association of Victoria 2018 get-together along with Mayor and CEO and Councillor Buckley. This was held at Livingston Waters in Omeo Valley. Well over 4,000 people attended the weekend, and it provided a significant boost to the area. Many things to see and do over the weekend, and an announcement by the Victorian Opposition to fund a feasibility study into the development of a High Country Hall of Fame was very well received by all and has certainly created a buzz around the High Country. I attended the East Gippsland Shire Council's Australia Day Citizen of the Year Awards with the Mayor and a number of other councillors, which was terrific to witness the very worthy winners of these Shire-wide awards and to see them be acknowledged and receive an award in front of their family and friends. And alongside Councillor Buckley, I attended the Australia Day Breakfast and Awards at the Courthouse Gardens in Omeo. It was a pleasure to present the Citizen of the Year Award to Russell Pendergast for his many and varied volunteer roles in the community, which have included the Omeo District Health Board, Landcare, Benambra Football Club, CFA and many others. Young Citizen of the Year was awarded to Briley Johnson, who was involved in volunteer work for the hospital and always on the lookout for the welfare of others. And the Community Event of the Year was awarded to the MND Mountain Challenge, which has been an ongoing event since 2011, raising money and awareness in support of MND. And as always, the Omeo Shire Lions Club do a terrific job in running the Australia Day Breakfast Awards. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Connell. Councillor Reeves.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, councillors and people in the gallery. It seems like a long time since we last met, and that I think is a good indication that it was a good summer. So I've shared a terrific summer, and in my part of the world there's been thousands of guests and visitors, and I think that's been a real feature of our Shire this summer. It's been fantastic. I was honoured to attend the Orbost Secondary College's presentation night back in December, and as the alma mater of my children, it was, I have a particular place in my heart for this particular school, and I really wish well those Year 12 students who are progressing on to the next stage of their life. I attended in January another centre that's close to my heart is the 40th anniversary of Mittagundee up there at Glen Wills. Now Mittagundee is an amazing centre set up by Ian Stapleton some 40 years ago, and in that time 10,000 young people have progressed through that program. If you think of 10,000 young people who have become connected to this part of the world and who come back and visit it and love our high country and love our areas around Omeo and Glen Wills, it's a really significant program, and I congratulate Ian in particular on his foresight, his dedication and the work in establishing that centre and the subsequent people who have been involved in it. I was absolutely delighted to launch the beach netball competition and the X-Marathon at Lakes Entrance and Marlow respectively in January. Now anybody who thinks it's a good idea to make netball even harder by playing it on the beach and in sand has to have their head read, but there were over 100 competitors, and similarly in the X-Marathon, extreme marathon there at Marlow, over 100 competitors. And the knock-on effect to our Shire, the flow-on effect to business and development and community is significant. When all of those people, the competitors, had 2 or 3 supporters along, staying in our motels, eating at our pubs, buying coffees at our cafes. That's the way we do it. Australia Day was a great celebration in Orbost. I'd probably say the numbers were a bit down, and in consultation with our fine Rotarians who ran the day that day, well, they're probably down. We found out where they were. They were all out at Cape Conran, and there were hundreds of barbecues and people celebrating in groups and in families out at Cape Conran on that particular day. So while they may not have been in the Shire events, people were celebrating and doing their own thing, and that's a good thing to know. As has been mentioned, the Australia Day Award recipients this year, and I'm sure we can salute as Jerry, the young citizens, Aislinn and Jack, and in particular our Malakuta winners for the Solstice Community Event of the Year. That's a great event. Now, councillors, we lost a great community member in recent times in John Rudge from Malakuta, and with your permission and with your support, councillors, I'd like to move that Council provide a letter of condolence and recognition under the Council seal, outlining Mr Rudge's significant community involvement. And let me just do a quick snapshot. He was Shire President and Councillor at Shire of Orbost for many years. He was a member of Coast Guard. He was a board member of East Gippsland Water. He was a member of the Malakuta Community Bank, or the Bendigo Bank. He was chairman of that bank. He was a supporter and driver of the improved ocean access at Malakuta, and was a member and driving force behind Malakuta and District Business and Tourism Association, or MAD Barter. Yep. And so councillors and community members, our thoughts and condolences are with John's family and his friends. And I hope that you will support that motion, as I mentioned, a letter of condolence under the council seal. Thanks, councillors.
Thanks, Councillor Reeves. Now, Councillor Reeves has moved for a motion for a letter of condolence. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pearls. Any questions? I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Councillor Roberts.
Another brief one from me. Late in December, I attended the Corroboree on the Water event hosted by Float. The event was a great success with a really large turnout. An incredible amount of effort has gone into building the floating art gallery down at Now, and it's great credit to the team. Even though I was not there on official council duties, I was lucky enough to be doing aerial photography as their drone operator from the event. So it's really cool to get a really different perspective of the event. On the 16th of January, we did a walk around Paynesville. referring to our deferred item tonight, we had a look around the proposed maritime precinct site to get a first-hand look at the area and how it would affect existing industrial works and how it might or might not be beneficial to Paynesville. And it was really, for me, being a new councillor especially, and I know it was well received around the table, but being able to get a first-hand look at what effects it might have and being able to actually have a look at the site and how it might be beneficial and how it may be appropriate. So I'd like to attend more of those. I know it's challenging with my conditions, but it was really beneficial from my point of view on that side. For Australia Day, I got to head down to Malakuta. This was really great. I got the opportunity, I got the choice to either do Bruthen or Malakuta, and I thought I really don't get down to visit that end of the Shire enough, and going down there was great because the sense of community in Malakuta is really astounding. Such a beautiful part of the world, and brought back many memories from when I was a kid attending the Malakuta Festival. A great credit to the Malakuta and District Lions Club, as well as Steve and the other volunteers for organising such a great event. It was just really, it was like everyone was a big family. I would also like to, I haven't got this written here, so I'll see how we go, but I'd like to mention Pauline Gary. I believe it may have been put in the newspaper towards the end of last year, but she did something really quite astounding, and I think it's a really nice story. She was with a paddling club, paddling up the Nico in December, and they were paddling up the river, and she heard a noise in the bushes up ahead, and other people that she was paddling with sort of put it down to a bird or something. Don't really worry about it. It's just something in the shrub. I mean, she fixated on it and she couldn't really get past it. And as they were paddling, she goes, "No, this is not a bird. There's something else going on here." And eventually she goes, "No, I'm following this up. I need to go and have a look." So she paddles over and she can hear a dog. And she can't find where the noise is coming from. Anyway, she paddles in and she's sitting at the side of a mud cliff, and she finds a dog submerged up to its snout in the water, like just the edge of the mouth, just carrying on. And she goes, "Well, I've got to get this dog out." So she tries to dig it out, thinking it's a Jack Russell or a Kelpie or something like that, not too big. 45 minutes later, they get this huge dog out of the mud, and the dog was in a really poor state. She had no idea how long it had been there, but she hauls this thing onto her kayak, she continues down, and then gets the dog to the vet. The dog can't stand, it's barely alive, and they eventually get the dog to the vet. They find the dog's been bitten by a snake, has fallen from the cliff into the mud, has been there for 5 days, it's completely paralysed, it's 14 years old, and it makes a full recovery and gets reunited to its family. And that is just awesome. Now, I know it's not really relevant here, but I thought, no, she needs a really solid. I would like to commend Pauline Gary for just an awesome thing. It's not often you get to get nice pieces of information like that. Now, I may be getting some of the details slightly incorrect, but if any of you know Pauline, ask her about it. It's awesome. She's made friends with the family. She's got all these photos. It's unreal. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. A great example of community spirit. Well done. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I won't be able to top that one, will I? And you mentioned our thing at function at Omeo with the Australia Day. Our lines are getting a bit thin on the ground up there, but we hope we can keep doing it. So we've got to try and find a way we can get our membership back up again. And our numbers were down a little bit too as well. On the 19th of January, an AGM of the Benambra Cooperative Store, that's Buca, was held. All the Board of Directors retired and did not seek re-election and were replaced by a younger and larger board. No dividend was declared, and it was decided that most reserve capital would be used to upgrade the buildings and infrastructure. I would like to add that the community is quite grateful for the help and advice received from Kate Nelson a decade or so ago that enabled us to form a co-op and avoid the closure of the shop and post office. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be very brief too, as January was a fairly quiet one. I'd also like to highlight the passing of another distinguished citizen of East Gippsland, and that was the passing of Mr Peter Turtle Stewart of Lakes Entrance. Mr Stewart was a very highly regarded Lakes Entrance citizen who's dedicated his life to a number of community groups, especially those associated with football and golf throughout the entire East Gippsland region. There would be hardly anyone associated with those two sports that would not known of Turtle. He was a man that gave all and left little behind when he moved on. He was an exceptional citizen and he will be greatly missed. Councillor Reeves referred to the beach games, which I also attended, another successful event, and I further attended the Citizen of the Year Awards for 2018. I also attended the Australia Day celebrations, like all of us, and I was at Lakes Entrance. Once again, I thank the Lions Club of Lakes Entrance for the dedication and amount of work that they put into that particular day. I also like to congratulate the award winners, especially Young Citizen of the Year for Lakes Entrance and Mr Nicholas Bain. Quite an achievement by young Nick. I attended the citizenship ceremony and was pleased to welcome a number of citizens into our community. I also attended the annual woodchop competition at Lakes Entrance, which is developing into a real calendar event. Touching on what Councillor Roberts mentioned earlier in relation to the activities of the Float Art Group based at Lake Tyers Beach, I had the pleasure and opportunity to attend their activities at Lake Tyers Beach House Road this weekend and also at Lake Tyers Beach. I understand the Mayor was there, we just didn't cross paths. Incredible amount of work has gone into that event, and in fact some of the activities are continuing, and I'll report further on the work of Float and the arts community at a later opportunity. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The same for me, that we've just only had a few events on since the last meeting, but I also attended Australia Day ceremony at Lindenow in the Amy Shan Reserve. Of course, another one hosted by the Lions clubs, this one being the Lindenow Lions. It was a good day and well attended. What was really good is that the young school kids get involved. They're given a task prior to the day, or probably towards the end of last term, to write poems that reflect on what their thoughts are on Australia Day. And they, only young kids, but they come forward and read their poems out, and that's very good because it brings the young people in the community to these events. It was a little disappointing, unfortunately. Lindenow did not have a recipient of award this year, but it still went ahead. We still had a reasonably good crowd at that event. And then later on in the day, I also attended the Palmers Road building for the Citizenship Awards, and I too would like to congratulate young Nick. He's somebody who I've only come to know over the last 6 months, with his being the captain of the special school, and it was his last year, but he's a really fine young fellow, and I wish him the very best in his future, because these kids have obstacles to overcome, and he's doing a great job at it. And also well done to our new citizens who took the oath. And then just yesterday we had sort of an impromptu livestock committee meeting regarding, it's a flow on from the new work that will be done on Giles Street and the bridge, which will limit the capacity to use the facilities we have at the moment due to traffic flow. And we had a very good meeting yesterday amongst a diverse group of people in attendance was Marg Supplet from Crossco, who's been given the task of probably drawing up the project after we discussed it. And what was really good about it is, we reached consensus among a diverse group of people, and we're looking at, because this needs to be done in a hurry, because otherwise the facility will be unusable once the roadworks is underway. So that's my lot since the previous report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor White. Councillor Pels.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Wow, what an extraordinary holiday period East Gippsland has had. The region's been abuzz with visitors to the region, and they're all attending our great activities that our communities are holding for them. I've heard unofficially around the grapevine that Lakes Entrance was recognised by bookings.com as the 5th most popular destination over the busy holiday season. Is that right? And with over 35,000 visitors coming to the township and enjoying its facilities and what it has, and the reports in have been nothing but favourable. So I think that's a really good accolade on behalf of the East Gippsland Shire, and more visitors to come, I presume, which is great. I had the pleasure to be amongst the Can River community for the Australia Day celebrations with a very active group. We probably only had about maybe 60 or 80 people. Most of them were people dropping in, so they were young families travelling through. The township itself was very busy, and all of the eateries were being utilised heavily. We had the bush nurses on standby, and they were doing health checks, and the SES, they were cooking the eggs and bacons and sausages. Both groups were hoping to stimulate more members with their displays that they had. And I have to truly be frank, with the main industry, the Hallmark Oats, the sawmill being closed, the township is now getting smaller, which is a real shame. So I'm afraid the interest is diminishing in these towns as the main services are disappearing and the population is either getting aged or they're moving away. So this is what is the reflection of reality in a community such as the outlying ones. It's a real shame to see these areas come to their demise because they've lost their major industry. It's absolutely appalling. It means that we lose the volunteers and it means we lose the skills as well. So, you know, once these people get aged and they move on or they move away for health reasons, we end up with a deserted town, probably not unsimilar to, you know, some of the smaller outlying areas. And it may be, I don't know, progression or whatever, but that town on the point of 2 highways, it's an absolute shame. I'm hoping that at some time in the future, some economic stimulus will come and replace or be enlightened to help that community up there. I did manage to start off the gumboot throwing contest, which I believe everyone who attended and participated, they all actually had a few giggles, they all had a go, and no one was shy. It was really quite hilarious. And when I threw mine, I managed to throw it straight up in the air and had to duck out of the way because it was coming back down on my head. I think I spilt my egg sandwich down the front of me, and you know, that was all entertaining as well. I didn't participate in the sack race as I felt it was unethical for a councillor to be attending in the sack race. But I then left and took my leave at that time and headed the 2-hour drive back to Bairnsdale to be with my family for the rest of the day. And I have to say that the councillors have been very active over the summer period, and I guess we've been doing what we enjoy the most, and it's getting out and about and talking to people and enjoying the holiday period with our families and friends. All of the food places, we've had some really good reviews for our restaurants up here, and people have been travelling specifically down from Melbourne to come and eat at some of our more recognised restaurants that are popping up around the place. So welcome and Happy New Year, everyone. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Pels. I'd like to mention the East Gippsland Art Gallery. Councillor Ellis attended an opening for me last week, but I'd just like to acknowledge the great work that Crystal Stubbs, the director there, and her staff have done in continuing with opening up the gallery to the community. There's been, I reckon, record numbers of events there and record people having a look at these events. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was Curtis Australia, their bespoke handcrafted jewellery which is sold around the world. Curtis Australia is a family-owned luxury brand based in Bairnsdale, creating fine jewellery and bespoke handcrafted pieces which are sold to customers all around the world. Their dedicated and talented team of jewellers, designers and watchmakers take great pride in handcrafting quality sought-after pieces. I mean, their business could be situated anywhere in the world, but they choose to live in East Gippsland, where they get their inspiration for many of their designs from our great region. During December, the Curtis business was visited by the Epic Times newspaper, which has a social media following of 90 million people. This is a Chinese newspaper with an editorial team based in Box Hill. When talking to the 12 delegates from the Box Hill office, they knew very little about East Gippsland, and their breath was taken away by the great natural beauty of our region's flora and fauna, along with our magnificent high country and coastal towns and villages. Their East Gippsland feature story has generated significant tourist interest in our region, which has potential to further boost our visitor economy numbers. I would like to thank the Curtis family for establishing and maintaining the presence of their unique business right here in East Gippsland. We need to celebrate the successes of these small businesses and these small business champions that think locally and act globally. Also attended the Bairnsdale Secondary College presentation night. This was a great event run by the students with some assistance from Councillor Roberts, and highlights students' citizenship, academic excellence and leadership. I'd like to take the opportunity, if I had support from my fellow councillors, to have an initiative where each school in our municipality has a East Gippsland Shire flag given to them to fly proudly whenever they have events like presentation nights. And I think it's important for the students to see that link with local government, particularly during their schooling and informative years. We had the mention around the East Australia Day Awards for the East Gippsland Shire. The Bairnsdale Award was taken out by Helen Gottschalk, a very worthy winner who's been a tireless worker in our community, and the young citizen Maddie Hack, who's a tremendous young person who's got a great future ahead of her. Thank you. Item 5, officer reports. Item 5.1.1 is Planning Scheme Amendment C128, request to vary restrictive covenants, Matheson's Road and Forge Creek Roads, Eagle Point. And in attendance we have Ms Weigel. Thank you.
Councillor as part of its journey through what is a very complex essentially the panel concluded that the variations the covenant has proposed were strategically justified and appropriate. They thought that it supported orderly planning, it considered the interests and the effects of all the affected parties, it would align with the proposed future Eagle Point structure plan, and it could be adopted because it presented a net community benefit. Whilst the planning panel process did add some additional steps and some frustrating additional time to this matter, the planning panel process is very importantly given respect to Councillor's approach and fully endorsed the approach that's been taken by Council on this matter. The panel concluded that Council was very clear about the need for the amendment to rectify and provide certainty to the landowners. It aligns with state policy and implements the local planning policy. It's a very effective method to rectify this issue at a precinct level rather than requiring property owners to individually try and rectify this. And they thought that this was the fairest and most expedient way of rectifying this issue. And so it was good use of council resources to bring this matter to a positive conclusion and also acknowledge the level of support that the submitters felt that council provided for them with throughout this process. The panel only made one very minor recommendation, an amendment to the process that we were proposing, and indeed this was actually put on the table by council and council representatives during the panel, which is to insert the certificate volume and title to each title and something very clear about the properties that are impacted by this planning scheme amendment. So the four recommendations before council tonight are to adopt the planning panel report in full, including this very minor amendment, to approve the planning scheme amendment and submit this to the planning scheme amendment for adoption to the Minister of Planning for approval to this effect. And we've added one final step, which is to, upon approval by the Minister of Planning scheme amendment, to provide the landowners with a letter to outline the final step of the process. We understand that often the planning scheme amendment will go through, but then the landowners don't undertake the final step to make sure that it impacts on their actual property title. So we will do that as that final piece of follow-up. So councillors, in conclusion, I believe this is a really great outcome for the property owners in the affected precincts, as it provides them with certainty and provides a very practical way of resolving a long-standing misalignment between the zone that the properties are in and the covenant of those properties. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Pels?
Yes, Ms Weigel, with regards to if this is approved in this form tonight, if it's adopted, how long would the expectations be for us to note the approval of the planning scheme amendment will be accepted by the Minister? How long will that process actually take?
Unfortunately, Councillor, we can't control how long the Minister takes to consider this planning scheme amendment. What we can do is make sure that it's sent through as soon as possible, and we have all the paperwork ready to go to send it through to the Minister's, the Department forward to the Minister as soon as Council formally considers the matter tonight. And we will be following this up regularly with the Planning Department because we understand it's been a long process for the property owners and we would like this to be considered as quickly as possible by the Minister. But we can't give a time frame for how long it will take to take that final step. We're hoping, given the nature of it, it will be recognised importantly and addressed by the Minister as soon as possible.
Councillor Toohey, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The planning panels, Victoria, you've got a cost there, a daily cost. Have you any idea how many days is involved?
That was one day. It's a one-day panel hearing. So just obviously some preparation time. There is a panel hearing. There's a direction hearing before the panel itself that was held here as well. The panel then went and inspected the properties on the road and then wrote up the report. But that is the standard fee for a one-day hearing. And then it's a multiples thereof if the hearing goes longer than 1 day.
Councillor Pels is happy to move the motion.
Yes, I'm happy to endorse this movement of this motion. I think it's really important that it goes through as quickly as possible.
It's been seconded by Councillor Toohey. Any speakers?
I'd like to speak to it, and I'd like to highly commend our employee, Nicole Reynolds, on her hard work with regards to attending to this, because, and of course our other planning officers, they've done a lot of work working with the community, and I think they've been really helpful in getting us to this stage so far. I also would like to commend the works of Mr. Michael Sadler, and although I know he's worked on behalf of some of the property owners, I think in the report they also highly endorsed a lot of his comments that he actually put in, so I thought that was of interest too to us, that he is well thought of and his comments were you know, actually used constructively to help us get it to this stage. So with that said, councillors, I would highly recommend that we put this through and give it the recommendation it deserves.
Did the seconder want to add any comments, Councillor Toohey? If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. Item 5.1.2, it's a snapshot of our planning activities and building activities reports. Planning quarterly report ending 31st December 2017 and building statistics quarterly report ending 30th of November 2017.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides a snapshot of the 2017 calendar year, and you'll note there are 506 planning applications received and 537 applications approved, with an estimated value of over $143 million. Over this period, there was an average of planning permits issued within 60 days, being 86% of applications received. And you will note that the pending files in the last quarter of 2017 are down to 80, which is an excellent effort by all staff, not just the planning staff, but all our associated professional staff, whether they be our engineers, our environmental health officers, and many, many more. Councillors, you also note that in the last quarter of last year, there was over $39 million worth of work approved via the planning permit applications, and for September, October and November, over close to $43 million worth of work approved by building permits issued within East Gippsland Shire Council. I think this shows a lot of confidence from the developer stakeholders and the development industry, and is well received by all. And there's a recommendation in front of you, councillors, to note this report. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr Hollow. Any questions, councillors? The recommendation is for noting. We'll have a mover for that recommendation. Moved Councillor Roberts, seconder. Councillor Reeves. Any speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. Item 5.2.1, it's the draft rating strategy for 2018-19. In attendance, we have Ms Liz Collins, Executive Manager Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The rating strategy is a document the Council must adopt each year, and this rating strategy is being reviewed for the 18-19 year. There's been some updates, but very minor updates, given the impending changes to, potential impending changes to the Local Government Act and in terms of the valuation process. So the report, the information is presented there, the copy of the draft strategy is attached, and there's a recommendation for Council's consideration to adopt the strategy this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Collins. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Buckley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. The maximum we can been requested to bring down the municipal charge, I understand, is 10%. State government has recommended we bring it down to 10% as opposed to the 20% we charge now. That's correct, isn't it? Thank you.
Currently, the municipal charge can be set to up to 20% of the total rates and municipal charge. And the review of the Local Government Act, there is a proposal that be decreased to 10%. That's correct, Councillor Buckley, in the proposed changes.
Councillor Pels, you had a question?
Yes, just with a further clarification of that, at the moment we only charge 18%, not the full 20%. Is that correct? Yeah?
Yes, Councillor Pels, it currently sits at about between 17 and 18%.
And with the follow-on from that, the local government, the new Local Government Act that's recommending the 10% is not in place as yet and won't be for a couple of years at this stage. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor Pels.
Okay, so we could safely say within the next 2 to 4 years we will be working to get down to a 10% differential rate as requested.
With the changes proposed with the Local Government Act, as well as moving to annual revaluations, there'll be a community consultation process. There'll be a whole range of rating components reviewed by council and also the community in terms of what that might look like in terms of a proposed 4-year rating and revenue strategy. So there'll be significant consultation and discussion with councillors to work through going forward in terms of the rating strategy.
Thank you, Ms Collins.
Question, if I
Councillor
may,
Pels.
Mr Mayor. Thank you very much for my indulgence. And so at that stage too, it's envisaged that council will actually review differential rates on farm properties, commercial properties and industrial properties alike. Yes?
The review of the rating strategy, and at any point in time, certainly council can review the use of differential rates, the number, et cetera, in terms of how we use them and set them. But this just sets the base in terms of going forward when we're putting together the budget, and it does provide some assistance, the rating strategy.
Thank you, Ms Collins. Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation before us. We have a mover. Moved Councillor Reeves. We have a seconder. Seconded Councillor O'Connell. Speakers.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, just to acknowledge the work that's been done by the officers, as usual, in putting this strategy together. It's the basis of how we move forward. Until such time as there's a mandated change, I recommend that we do stay with our municipal charge as it is. I'm sure that there will be a councillor or councillors who speak against that. But municipal charge in particular does have exemptions for farm enterprises. So those councillors who are going to talk on behalf of the far-flung regions and the farmers, they can get an exemption, I understand. It also is an incentive for people to develop those vacant blocks. And people who have vacant blocks and leave their boats on them and caravans on them, use our roads, access our tips, have access to all the benefits and privileges of the Shire, and it's fair that they contribute in this way. So I certainly commend this strategy, councillors.
Would the seconder like to speak? Any further speakers? Councillor Buckley. Yep.
You were requesting anyone against the motion?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In my view, we will always have problems with rates until we can improve the system of a differential taxing system by a state within a state. And we could start with absorbing our discriminatory service tax disguised as a municipal charge into our general rate tax. And I find that until we start to move towards those improvements, I find it difficult to support this budget. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I take note of Councillor Buckley's points, and I want to reassure him that those concerns are being considered. Over the next 12 months, the state government will introduce the new Local Government Act, which will impact upon the way we manage our rating processes and which will also incumbent upon us to review the municipal charges. My reading shows that there's a talk to readdress the municipal charge and figures ranging from reducing it by 50% down to 10%, or allowing the freedom for various councils to continue to 20%. So the motion before council tonight, Mr Mayor and councillors, is in fact an interim strategy to cover us over this transition period whilst the new act is introduced and is taken to the public, and then we'll need to come back. So over the next 12 months or so, we will be quite busy with that matter. That said, I recommend, as Councillor Reeves has, the motion before you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Any further speakers against? Further speakers? Councillor Roberts?
I'll say something brief. I had a bit of a chat with Councillor Buckley, and I think there is merit in some of the things he's saying in regards to reworking the figures. If you were to reduce or remove a municipal charge, so the charges would be spread accordingly, and I would like to see some more looking into that space. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Reeves?
So thank you, councillors. I believe I have a right of reply.
Yep.
Councillors, there's an interesting discussion, existential discussion, if you like, about tax, about rates. I'm a big fan of tax. I'm a big fan of rates. You need to flip the discussion around. This is not an impost. This is a benefit. We're actually socialising the benefit by collecting these funds and sharing it across the Shire. The councillors who have spoken against this are the direct beneficiaries of the fact, as we all are, of the collection of rates in our Shire. Think of the 100 services or more that our Shire provides. From 3 aerodromes, boat ramps, every street light that illuminates your step as you plod your way through our towns is provided by our Shire. Every footpath that you walk on, every road that is not a Vic Roads road, we pave, we maintain. These are all ours. Every hack service, every free Wi-Fi that you connect to into our libraries, every book you borrow. Every time you launch your boat at Malakuta, Lake Tyres, wherever it happens to be, they are the Shire rates at work. This is not an impost. Flip the conversation around, councillors. This is a Shire benefit that we're all providing and contributing to. I recommend this motion again.
Thanks, Councillor Reeves. That now concludes the debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion's carried. So item 5.2.2 is Finance and Capital Works Report, 6-month period ending to the 31st December 2017. And in attendance we have Ms Liz Collins, Executive Manager of Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Finance and Capital Works report for the 6-month period ending 31st of December 2017 is presented for Council's information. Some of the key things to note through the report is the revised forecast operating result for the 17-18 year, which is estimated to be less than the adopted budget by $695,000. There's a range of reasons for that in terms of we've had additional grant funds come in, but we've also offset that with additional expenditure relating to those grants. We've had some works that were carried forward, operating works, where we received the grant last year, but the works are being completed this year, and that was over $1 million that was brought into this year's expenditure. So with those adjustments, certainly we're tracking, putting those aside, tracking well in terms of operating and the result. There's certainly been some number of the variances in terms of the capital grants, and the timing of the capital grants for certain projects does impact on the operating result because of the year that we receive those grants versus potentially when we do the works. So that does impact through. The cash position at year end is looking much stronger, but that's really a result of a review of the capital works program at the end of December And in terms of some of the multi-year projects that have now had contracts awarded for them, the budget for some of those will carry across into the next year. So there's a significant amount of additional dollars in the bank at year end, but it's committed to those projects. In terms of notes and explanations to variances, they're provided in the appendix to the report. And given that this is a joint report, the finance and the capital works component, I'll pass across to Mr. Waits to speak to the capital works component.
Thank you, councillors. With respect to capital works, in summary, the adopted 2017-18 capital budget was $35.6 million. In addition, there was another $5.5 million of landfill rehabilitation projects, so a total of approximately $41 million. At mid-year, expenditure was sitting at a fairly modest $9 million. However, there's another almost $19 million of projects already committed, so contracts awarded and contractors ready to get underway with those works. You will note in tonight's commercial in confidence section, there's another almost 10% of capital works that you will consider to award tonight. So if that does go ahead, we'll have commitments and actuals of over 70% of the capital program at this point in the year, which is a fairly big ramp up in the last couple of months. You'll also see in tonight's report that there's some new projects listed. All project budget adjustments have been shown, and any projects that are delayed, there's an explanation of why those projects are delayed and how those projects are expected to be either brought back on track or when their deferred delivery date will be. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Waits. Councillors, we've had the reports. Any questions? Councillor Pels.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just reviewing some of the grants there, and there was some that I was a bit concerned about, and it was the Vulnerable Persons Project. I was just wanting to know more information about that. Is it continuing, that program? And
yes, it's recurrent funding at the moment, as I understand it. So following the Bushfires Royal Commission in 2009, there was a lot of work done to understand how we do actually know and track people who qualify as being vulnerable in the community. And Council has a part-time funded position that works with us and the various service providers that look after people that receive assistance. So it, at the moment, is ongoing funding. Yep.
Any further questions, councillors? There's a recommendation before you. Do I have a mover for a motion? Move Councillor White. Have a seconder? Councillor Pearls. Would you like to speak, Councillor White?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to congratulate Liz on her thoroughness and how she gets stuck into her work and produces these outcomes for us. And yeah, I'd just like to say thank you, Liz, because we all appreciate and can see what a really good job you are doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Pels, did you want to speak? Seconder?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, you know, it's a mucky time of year because you're only 6 months through the financial period, and you're sort of still juggling funds on what's going to get to the end of the financial year and what's not. So the staff are doing a good job staying on top of things. I know that they've got a lot of processes in place that are checking our contractors and keeping an eye on how they're progressing with funds being spent there, which I think is a really great initiative. The staff that are doing that are also doing a great job and keeping everything up to date for us. So I think that's a really good welcome. And we won't find ourselves, you know, being too under budgeted for the financial year. I think it's we'll be almost on par. So thank you, Liz, and your team. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Councillor Pels. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. So item 5.2.3 is a community joint use agreement 2018, the Bansdale Aquatic and Recreation Centre and Forge Theatre and we have Mr Holton in attendance. Thank you, Mr Holton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As councillors would be aware, the Bairnsdale Aquatic and Recreation Centre and the Forge Theatre are established on Education Department land, and part of the arrangements that underpin that require that a joint use agreement be in place that outlines the roles and responsibilities of all parties in respect to the occupation of that land. With the redevelopment of the Bairnsdale Aquatic and Recreation Centre, with the addition of a new pool and an extension to the area that the centre now occupies, a new agreement was required to be put into place by the Education Department's Schools Building Authority. That agreement has been developed in consultation between council, the school and the School Building Authority, and is now ready to be executed. And the recommendation is that councillors resolve to enter into a new agreement and to note that the content of the agreement, as well as authorise the CEO to execute that agreement on behalf of council. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Holton. Any questions, councillors? We have a recommendation before us. We have a mover. Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Seconded, Councillor Toohey. Speakers?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This agreement hopefully will pave the way for a benefit to the Shire and the Bairnsdale Secondary College as a whole, moving forward with the next stage of the Bairnsdale Secondary College development, as well as the aquatic centre and the sporting facilities review across the Shire. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what all this big piece of the puzzle links up to. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Toohey, is there any further speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item 6, Mr CEO, any urgent business?
There's no urgent other business, Mr Mayor.
Item 7 of our agenda is a confidential business. Just need a motion.
Happy to move that motion that we move into in-camera pursuant to action section 89 2D and E, the Local Government Act 1989, to consider item 7.1 as this item relates to contractual matters. Mr Mayor, happy to move.
Seconded, Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. We'll have a 2-minute break just before we deal with item 7.1. Thank you.